are listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wanko and Joe Vitale.
Well, hey, in case you didn't know, we are officially recording. Well, hey, buddy.
Officially. Hey, buddy.
Hey, what's going on? I'm good. How are you? Welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast there to our listeners. I am one of your hosts, Joe Vitale. This is the lovely Miss Wanko. Hi, Miss Wanko.
Hello. It's one word, Miss Wanko.
Miss Wanko. It's one word.
Right.
It's good stuff. Yeah. So here we are.
Here we are. Do you find your name? So there's always people, right, that, you call by their first and last name.
There are some people. It's funny that you mentioned it, and I never really noticed it about like how when you came to our building, everyone goes by last name, which is crazy. And
it's
you
not
are
for me.
I get it.
It's not for me personally. Like I feel, I think I've said this before, maybe because I feel more connected to my first name as my identity than my last name, which is taken by marriage and not something that I feel like fully identified with. So I guess maybe that part of that. Also, I feel like it's very culture to call people by their last name. And
I
it's
agree.
not as personal as the relationship that you can cultivate with someone by their first name. But one thing that I definitely noticed when I got married was going from Miss Macia to Mrs. Wanko is that it just became Miss Wanko.
Miss Wanko.
It's always been Miss Wanko.
Yes. It's
one word.
Down to one word.
Yeah, always. And it's been like that forever.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, now that you've been married, forever.
Forever.
Yeah. It's funny too, because like our last name, Vitale, that's how it's pronounced, but some people pronounce it Vital. And the only place it's pronounced Vital is when my son is playing baseball. People are like, Vital. And I'm like, who? And it just happened and he never corrected it. And that's what it is. And on every team he's ever been on, it's been Vital, Joe Vital. And I don't know. It just is. Which is always a
Vital.
Yeah, I know. It's just, I mean, it's another way to pronounce it. It's not technically wrong, but that's, we've been going by Vitale for so long.
Yeah.
But anyway, here we are, last names. So we are in the midst of a fall break, which is very well deserved. There is no, I caution to say there is no tired like the end of October teacher tired. I
honestly think May is worse, but
you think May is okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Like after March and all those weeks and state testing, it really, and then the weather starts to turn, at least for us here, we have seasons. And I do think that has like some level of influence. And then like as the months go on, I don't know, but that's just me personally. In the fall, I always feel like I feel rejuvenated after my summer vacation. I look forward to the fall break, and I like it. If it was only 4 days, that would be okay with me. If we got out earlier and our break was only Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that would be okay.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. But that's not how it is where we teach. And so, of course, that's not what anybody is used to per se. But we did go 9 solid weeks without a day off.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's a pretty long run in comparison to other school districts or the way that other things are set up. So, I think that, but no, I can't say that I think October is more, that I'm more tired. I still feel like energized from the summer. We've been having a run of like some really crazy, fantastic weather. And so that also like gives a lot more time outside. Now we have come upon daylight savings.
Did we do it? Did we save the daylight? Did we do it?
And that is, when last night when it crept in and it was 10 to 5 and it was, the darkness was upon us. It was like,
yes.
Oof.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Why are you here? It's 4 p.m. Okay.
Right.
So,
that's good. I actually have.
These are all memes. These are all memes.
Oh,
Everything
really?
that I've shared with a few people. Yes,
I have a
stuff.
therapy light. I have a therapy light and I will be bringing that out. I leave it in the garage when the months are good to us. And then once the daylight savings, bless you, I will take out my therapy light and try to, give myself some fake some
Got
fake
it.
light.
Shout
Yeah.
out to your professional period buddies who I got to sit in on about the regaling us on the stories of tech neck. There's a lot going on with tech neck, with like the hunching and the you got to keep the face, got to keep everything
So
elongated and the
Technic,
contouring.
it's serious though. I mean, Technic is all over the interwebs. Look it up. I thought somebody had sort of cleverly made that up. And I didn't realize that it's extremely common, and it's not only causing issues with neck because, so the running joke at school for me is I have this old K-cup pod box that I put my laptop on, and it's very light. I like to drum on it. I can carry it anywhere. I also can prop open a window when I go to bathroom duty as needed. So it is a
It is a multi-use
multifunctional. I
box.
mean, you just have no idea the potential of the box. And if you're ever on your phone in the hallway and you need somewhere to stash your phone, in the side of the K-cup box is another spot for you can just put your phone right in there. There's a lot of uses for it, but the tech neck is a real and true thing. And not only is tech neck causing neck problems, it's causing headaches and other issues connected, but it is also causing widespread double chin
Chin doubling. Yes.
in a way that we have not seen before the tech neck situation, and in children as well as adults, because that's what we're doing so much of the time. So if you have a box, a little K-cup situation, and you want to join, so far I'm a tribe of one. It's just me. I have to say it elicits a lot of conversation. It is
It
brought
does.
up often. And then if I forget it, it's like, hey, where is it? We don't need it today. And I'm like, oh, I just forgot it behind my desk. But yeah, so anyway, today I don't have a K-Cups box. I do have a lock and lock that my computer is on, but it does really help to be at eye level. And I know that they make fancy stands and
Yes, they
things
do.
that you can use. And I had one during COVID. It just didn't survive. It broke, and I don't know. But anyway,
Gotcha.
so yeah, so
I
this actually lends itself to our conversation for today, our topic for today.
It does, as a matter of
It
fact.
does.
And we were, again, shout out to my wife who actually tagged me in a post online. We have a local school district in Kenilworth. Shout out to the Kennel.
Big ups, K-Town.
Big ups, K-Town. That's what it is. Which, by the way,
I lived there for a very long time, and
and
it really always will have my heart.
and the Kenilworth Diner, which apparently has the most amazing cheesecake on the planet. Correct? Is that?
It's 100% the
Okay.
best.
And I have not had it yet. I still have to do that at some
You
point.
do.
I have to
Yep.
get me some cheesecake from the Kenilworth
It's
Diner.
world class.
Yes.
World.
So the now, in comparison, the school district that we're about to talk about is much different than the one that we work in. We live in like the 4th largest school district in the state. I think that's the number. We have about 1,000 students per grade level, so about 15,000 students, roughly under that number, but very close
Yep.
to it.
Mhm.
So
About 100,000 people that live in our town.
yes, we have my goodness, 3 high schools, 5 middle schools, and 17 elementary schools. Some that have closed and merged and all sorts of stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
this school in Kenilworth, I mean, I don't know if you have the article up in front of you, Miss Wanko. So it's in Kenilworth, and the superintendent decided to do something very interesting, which we thought would be a nice place to jump off and talk about today on today's episode.
So Kenilworth, in comparison to where we work, has 8,000 people, a population of 8,000 people, compared to our population of 100,000 people. And let's see about their school. I know that they have 1 elementary school, middle school, high school throughout the entire town. So let's see. So what they decided to do, and they do have tons of resources online for this as well, is to have a day where they declared tech free.
Yeah, and it was just recently.
And it was
Um,
just recently, a couple of weeks ago. And
yep.
not only did they go tech-free in the schools, but they encouraged parents to continue with the tech-free suggestion at home as well.
Which I really I thought was an interesting aspect of it.
They have approximately 1,400, so let's say 1,500 students in
Yeah.
their school district, which is, you know, a grade in
Yeah.
hours.
So it says for this Tech Free Friday, teachers at all levels will refrain from employing devices, screens, and technology in their classrooms to give our students that old school feel of what teaching and learning used to be like prior to the influx of Chromebooks, smartphones, Promethean boards,
Ooh.
or smart boards, and educational software. We're challenging our students to take a pledge to remain technology free both inside and outside of the school on Friday. We encourage families to engage with this challenge as well. Can Friday be technology-free day and night throughout Kenilworth? Is there value in return to screen-free living, even if just for one day? Following Tech Free Friday, we'll be holding focus group conversations with students and teachers within the schools.
Hmm.
I really think that it was very interesting. They have some follow-up coming up soon. So I think it's very interesting to me that they're moving in that route. In a district our size, this might be very challenging. We have done this in school. We've done like a I forget what it was actually called. What we called it when we were there. I don't even know if you were there at the time. I know we did one where we asked people to like
At your
do
school
things.
now?
Yes. I
I
don't
wasn't.
know. I forget what we did. We did something. We did called it I learn, I play, I grow. Something. Not no. That wasn't it. That was something. We did something new with technology. I know we did something. I can't remember exactly what we called it.
I
I
wasn't
really,
there.
yeah, I really think that um, this is a move in the right direction. Okay. Personally, I've noticed one of the things I've noticed over the last, say, post pandemic years, is students that are using the technology itself as a crutch, and they don't really know. I don't want to say they don't know how to use the device, but like we haven't really given them the proper tools as to like how to use it as a learning device. We're still going to Google, typing in the exact question that's on the worksheet, for example, and then taking the first answer that pops up, which, as we know, is not research. So um, it's been a challenge to when I returned to going to more discussion based activities last year. I don't want to say there was pushback, but a lot of the kids just felt uncomfortable, like having those conversations. It's like, okay, but we're going to close the device and talk to each other. We're
Right.
going to problem solve together. We're going to work through XYZ activity by discussion, not by staring at a device, at a screen for a particular class period or block at the time.
Right.
Um, I really am interested to hear what what the parent feedback is from this, and I don't think there'll be necessarily any pushback, but I'm wondering if those parents um, had any pushback from their kids in regards to being tech free at home, if that's the route that they chose to take.
Right. It says the goal of Tech Free Friday is to give students the space to not be focused on their screens. Inspired by his experiences in education for 23 years, Superintendent of Schools Jeremy Davies hopes this day will start conversations among parents, teachers, and students about finding balance in the constant presence of technology. And so this article, it also mentions that the superintendent was inspired by Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. Now, this is also a book that you and I are going to be reading and
Yep.
also discussing. And so I wasn't sure if when I read the initial article, or maybe I just forgot that he was inspired by the book. And I do think that if nothing else, just having the conversation and putting that out there is extremely influential, even if people don't want to think that it's true, or if they do, or they're not sure where to start. I think it's a fantastic thing to give it, to give it some legs and give it, this movement towards taking some of that. Now, I know that there are lots of parents that limit the amount of screen time. And I think for as many parents that limit the number of hours on screens at home are the amount that don't.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, especially like for us with older children, when our kids were in school in first grade, second grade, third, I mean, all the way up to really middle school, I would say. Even, my son, when he was in third grade, second grade, he was in what was called the iPad class. And
The
that
iPad
was
class.
the iPad class. And so every single child in the class had an iPad and they took the iPad, they took it home. It still wasn't the
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it still wasn't the prevailing way to deliver. It wasn't like it didn't it didn't take over the way that the information was taught to him. It didn't seem
No.
to, if that makes sense. So and of
And
course when he was
being a part of that initiative when it was first rolled out,
yeah.
it wasn't done right. Because again,
So you were part of the rollout of that?
when we first
Okay.
we did that in district, I was
Because I
a
wasn't.
I
So
was
I
an
was only
Apple
I was a parent,
yeah.
participant of that.
I was a I was a teacher in district who had special certification from Apple, and we were one of the people that like they asked us our opinion on what direction we should go in with this, and we tried to kind of how do I want to say this? We wanted to like pump the brakes on like the implementation of it to be like, okay, if we're going to do this right, why don't we pilot it in a small place
Sure.
and let's iron out the bells and whistles. It also was one grade level, kind of like in its own little ecosystem, and that was the only grade level that was using iPads and we were delivering instruction on. So the kids had been using Chromebook, and then we kind of pull it away from them when they went into the 8th grade, and then we gave them an iPad. And my own children came home. They had Chromebooks that we had purchased them. They had like personal ones that when they were smaller, and they literally would just put the iPad aside and do all their work on their Chromebook. Because there was nothing iPad specific that they were working on.
Right.
It actually became more challenging for them to complete some of their work on the iPad as opposed to just coming home, putting it aside, and working on the Chromebook. Because we also weren't completely engrossed into Apple's ecosystem. Like the way it works best is if everybody is using those devices and everyone is using MacBooks and everyone has that training. But unfortunately, that is incredibly cost prohibitive for a district that's our size.
Right.
We're talking about tens of millions of dollars. And you might think, oh, we're buying so many devices. The discount it's the same. The teacher discount, the student discount that you get on bulk purchasing of devices is the exact same as if you went as a teacher and bought an iPad for yourself.
Right.
It's the 4% discount. But you're also buying Apple School Manager software as well as, other things that you need to purchase, plus the training of the people on the tech side that need to be able to deal with the issues, problems, and troubleshooting that arises from it.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember as a parent, it was, sometimes he had it at home, sometimes he didn't, sometimes he used it in school, sometimes he didn't. And it was okay. It was a nice mixture. And he had an iPad when he was little, like 3-4 years old. And we would read books and do some different like interactive things. But we also didn't have as parents, we didn't have smartphones yet. So it was this sort of changeover of time, and we've all changed.
Yeah.
We've all changed. And so I think like the story out of Kenilworth is to actually have like the adult parents also say, I'm going to go tech free as well.
Yeah.
And, it makes me think of when we had John Paul Gonzalez on the show last season, and he spoke about how he had the box for his cell phone, and then he had to buy a couple of them because he busted them open because like once it was inside and it locked. Remember, he said, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I do need my phone for something, and he would have to break the box open. And it's true. So what we're saying about the kids is also, turn around and look at yourself as well. It's for sure a problem that we're all experiencing together.
On a recent episode of which I don't really show very often in class, they have CNN 10, they have World A to Z. Shout out Carl Zeus. So I actually
and Coy Wire.
And Coy Wire. I happen to, I look at them sometimes in the morning, and sometimes if if the information is like pertinent to what we're going over, if they're like a lot of stuff with the hurricane, we were, with the hurricanes in Florida, we were discussing how that's a civics issue and stuff like that. But in a recent episode that I played just before the break, they quoted a very recent article from the World Health Organization, which was posted in the end of September. And it says that more than 1 in 10 adolescents showed signs of problematic social media behavior, struggling to control their use and experiencing negative consequences. Girls reported higher levels of problematic social media use other than boys. Over a third of young people report constant contact with friends online, with the highest rates among 15-year-old girls. A third of adolescents play digital games daily, with more than 1 in 5 playing for at least 4 hours on days when they engage in gaming. This also goes on to talk about how the minimum amount of screen time that people were exposed to was about 4 hours, and that did not include time on a device in school. We're talking about outside of the regular school day. So that's a lot.
What do you think you average? Does your phone tell you?
Yeah, there's some days I average more than others. But it's also
What?
weird because like I have apps that are running in the background, or like if I'm picking up and using timers, it says that I'm using my phone. So I'm using it, but I'm not using it because I
So
keep
what is your average week?
my average week. It's about 3.5 to 4 hours, just about.
Okay.
It's about on the average.
Mine's about 5.5 to 6.
Yeah. And it also
Just
depends
saying.
on
I mean,
on the
no,
day.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I'm just when that little it sends it, I don't know, every Saturday, every Sunday, whenever it's like you have average, and it's somewhere between 5 and 6 hours a day.
Yeah. Which is
I'm just being honest.
no,
And that
it's a
has nothing to
significant
do with
amount.
it has nothing to do with what I'm doing at work, where I am between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And I'm on a screen all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're also trying to, you're doing engaging content, trying to engage with the kids. And we've talked about gaming and the gamification of education and the conversations that we've had around it. We've talked about that. But, I don't necessarily know if we're meeting kids where they are. Like one of the things that I really want to do some more research on, in all my free time is like learned helplessness. They get to a point where they're like, I don't get it. And then immediately, and I'm trying to figure out, why is that the case? Is it because they're having side conversations when you're giving directions? Is it because they don't understand the directions? Are we giving too many multi-step directions? Are the things that we're doing too challenging or difficult for them to handle? And I don't know the answer to any of that. But a lot of times it becomes, I can't do this, so I'm just going to stop and throw my hands in the air and go, I don't get it. What do I do? How do I do this? And it's like, no, well,
I do think that a big part of that is middle school.
oh yeah. Yeah. No,
I really do. I do
uh-huh.
think a huge piece of that is just middle school and obstacles, and they don't have any choice really in what they're doing or how they're doing it. They don't have any choice in their electives or the things that they enjoy. I do think it's also like hormonal. I think there's a lot of like factors at play, but at the same time yes, the instant gratification is real, and the lack of like genuine problem solving skills is affecting the way that they learn and their ability to try.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I'd be so curious. I can't wait till they come out with, how their tech-free day went. I don't mind the idea of tech-free. I mean, at this point, if they took it away, right? They took all the tech away. I would be at a bit of a loss for like some of the routines that I have established with the students and the way that things are done. But I do, obviously we both taught before this, so you can see it. I can see it. You kind of understand how it would go, what it would look like, because we did it.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier to like genuinely, if you have this conversation with someone who's been teaching for 5 years and they have been one-to-one the whole time, it's a much different conversation.
Yeah. I find that it is much more challenging to do things off the device than on the device. Right before the break, we had 2 activities that students were doing to finish up a unit that we were on, and one of them was I gave them a little knowledge check on one of the daily news broadcasts that we watch. I wanted them to like answer some questions that went along with it and reflect on some of the stories. And then the second thing was an ed puzzle that I've used. It's probably one of the things I use the most, like for introduction of unit concepts and like remedial units and stuff like that. Like I use a lot of stuff from ed puzzle because their original content is very good.
Yeah.
So
agree. I like ed puzzle as well.
Yeah, but when I use those things, I find that the kids are much more engaged in focusing on their work and then being able to transition from activity to activity. I like it's almost easier because they know like what the expectation is. I can put my headphones on, I can focus on my work, I can work at my own pace. But when I give them something like when we're doing stations and they're moving around, that's much more labor intensive for me as an educator, which I mean, why wouldn't it be? But I also enjoy that because I'm circling around and I'm meeting with different groups and I'm talking to them about things, and we're holding up pictures and we're talking about reflecting on something in the Constitution or whatever it is we're doing. It gets them to think more critically about the material than it does just watch an ed puzzle. But what I also did with them was like, okay, so when we're done with this today, we're going to close our devices, and then we are going to we had some coloring pages that I had put aside. It was Diwali, so I had some cute little coloring pages. And coloring is a low stakes brain activity where you don't have to worry about the like making a mistake or coloring in between the line outside of the lines. Like it's not necessarily difficult for someone to color. And then students asked like, okay, can I listen to music while I'm doing this? And I said to myself, okay, yes. I said, let me see how this goes. So I said, put the music on. I said, shark bite your Chromebook, like put it halfway and you guys can color. And many of them, but it was also funny because like I'm looking at Go Guardian and I'm like, let me see what they're actually listening to. Because I told them, please be mindful of what you're listening to. Please be mindful of the language that's used. Please be mindful of the imagery that pops up if you're watching thing on a playlist or whatever. And some of them were like, because it's just after Halloween. So it's like, we're going to listen to Christmas music. So they started that already. Okay. Which I know is near and dear to your heart. And there were, some that were listening to Hamilton and some that were listening to Bollywood music, and just like others that were listening to, things that they shouldn't be listening to. So I would just drop a link to the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse theme song and make them listen to that and open up their tabs. And say, okay, in the penalty box, you got to listen to Disney tunes now because you were listening to something that was not appropriate. So yeah, it became like something a little bit fun in class, but they actually did a very good job staying on task while still using their device. So there has to be some kind of balance.
Right. I know. When we do any kind of like cultural activity, I play cultural music because it's always, can we listen to music? And I'm like, absolutely. Let's all listen to music together.
Yes.
And then I play music.
I do that too.
Yeah, for everybody. And of course, some of them are really good at regulating and listening, or and then some of them it's just like they get sucked into finding the perfect song and they can't finish what they're supposed to be doing. But I do like to have them like, okay, who's going to be the DJ, and then have one of them pick out the songs for us to listen to.
Got it.
And when we did Diwali this week, we really did hear like quite a bit of Bollywood, and it's pretty amazing how many of the students, and I always say, like, for some of you, this is the first time you're ever hearing music like this.
Yeah.
And for others, this is the soundtrack of your lives. You listen to this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I will do that with like the like medieval lute, like whatever it is, whatever time period we're studying, like I will play like, oh, you can listen to music. And then I play the music.
During the pandemic, I would always have like a discussion question to start class. And when kids entered the room, I would start out with music every day.
Yeah.
And I would always play, we had like Flashback Friday where I would play like older stuff. Or like, stuff from the 90s, or I would play like old school cartoon theme songs, or I would play, I'd look at like whose famous birthday it was that day. And if it was a musician, I'd play something from that. So I really enjoyed doing that. And then I would let them request like certain songs that they wanted to hear. And like, I would like I put it on a wheel, I'd spin the wheel, and I'd have like, I would do it before class and like record it and like, okay, this is what we're going to listen to, and just give them a couple minutes. Or if there was a song that I heard that I liked a lot, I was like, oh, here's something by Luke Combs, and I thought the lyrics were very interesting, so listen to this. And some of them would be like, ugh, country, or like, it's just something different, like
Yeah.
expose them to something different.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
I
because of like the actual, it helps them to talk. That I understand what you're saying. It's like I do want them to and try to encourage them to have conversations with one another that are, not just the same three people that they're talking to, but
Yeah.
to try to engage more often. And so there is like that really like that safety component of like, I have my headphones on. What does that say? It says, don't talk to me. I'm, private. It's me and my space, right? So like even just that immediate, gives them like that comfort level of like why they all wear AirPods all the time. It's like you see someone with AirPods on and you're kind of assuming like, oh, I can't say anything to them because they have AirPods, like they're busy, and then I think that that's part of like the whole Fahrenheit 451ing of the whole society, of like,
Yeah.
I always say to them, like, come on, like, come into the human world. Like we're really interesting here. But there is like, it is a cultural shift of what is acceptable or not acceptable behavior. And I mean, and people had Walkmans, remember Walkmans, Discmans, and you would listen to music, but now it's just, it's just different. It's different. My kids say a lot in the car because obviously we have a podcast, but I am a fan of podcasts and I like to listen to podcasts. And a lot of times my kids will say to me like, can we just talk? Can we just talk?
Yeah.
And I love that, because yeah, of course we can. Sure. What should we talk about? So I get it. It's like, there was radio, there is TV, but it's just this whole level of like how much is too much or how to stop it. And I do like the idea of this town trying for one day and then like, hey, let's continue this discussion because it's not like we're throwing all the Chromebooks out, like we're burning the books, because we know that that's not reasonable. We know that that isn't going to happen. So how can we find a moment to reflect on what's good, what's too much? How can we really analyze what is working and what's not working? And I think that is, anytime that people are willing to participate in something like that is always a positive practice, no matter what it is, tech-based or not.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's why I don't want to structure it more, but I try to do things, okay, we're putting the device aside today. We're not even opening it. The only kids that'll have it open are the ones that need Google Translate, the ELL students in the room that have to translate things. And even that I forget. And I'll be like, hey, you got your never mind, you're good. And I forget.
Yeah.
But some of them, it just becomes like, okay, we're going to close our Chromebooks. All right, let me go over the directions. And then I start, and then 2 or 3 minutes in, I start looking around the room and like a kid's got it on his lap or this one's got it over here. And I'm like looking and I'm like, what are we doing? Can we,
they can't.
Yeah.
My favorite are the ones, let me demonstrate, that do this. Like they're in it. Like they're in it. And I've now actually taken to saying, are you afraid it's going to swallow you?
Yes.
And would that make you happy? And they they giggle, but it's like your face, your nose is actually touching the screen.
Yeah.
You're in the book. You're in the Chromebook.
And I think the thing that I struggle with so much is like when I am in the middle of giving directions and I have like, the computer's open and the Go Guardian tab is up or whatever. And like, I look over and I see that like somebody's got their Chromebook open and then I look to see what they're watching and they're watching like a YouTube video or like something. And I'm like, this is whether it's good practice or not, I'll literally say, you're going to be the first person that when we transition to doing the work independently, you're going to go, I don't know what to do. And I'm literally going over our agenda for the day. And I'm going over, what it is we're going to be working on and what the expectation is for the day. And when it comes time for you to transition to do things on your own, you're going to go, I don't get it. So like when I say to you, we're again, back to my words of the year, focus and intentional. Like we're going to be intentional about the decisions that we're making. We're going to close the device. We're going to sit. We're going to listen. Then we're going to transition. If you're working and discussing, that's a completely different time frame. That's the time to have those discussions, not while you're in the midst of trying to learn, okay, what am I doing today?
Right.
Um,
I wonder if it, if it's something that they're going to consider trying to do once a month, or if it's something that they want to try to do, I wouldn't mind even if it was like by subject, like every Wednesday, social studies, you know what I mean? Like some sort of routine. I have always, and we were the first school to be one-to-one in the district where we are for every student in our building. And
your previous school where you worked at,
my
right? Not the one that
previous school,
not the one that
not
we are currently at. Okay. Yes.
no, very different tech abilities or lack thereof. Like there was a distinct difference in the two places, for sure. And one wasn't right and one wasn't wrong. It was just like what happened. But when we were rolling out our pilot, we were talk about being intentional. We were extremely intentional about. We started with partnerships of teachers. We started with the special ed population so that they could have greater levels of accommodations for the leveling of their classrooms. We started out with just 2 subject areas and then built on it. And then the district changed over and made it everyone, everything all the time. And it was like a runaway train that we just couldn't, it was gone. There was no keeping up.
And I know this is critical, with little to no consistent training and follow-up.
Right. I mean,
I know that we offered things. I was involved in the things that we offered, the trainings, the tech academies, all the stuff that we did, right? I was involved in that. But we didn't there was no it's not from the top down. It's from the bottom up. And it just doesn't work that way. You have to be, because immediately somebody got the new thing and they're like, ooh, this isn't working. This is going to go back up on the shelf and I am not touching this again.
Right.
And nobody said, no, we're going to make this work. We're going to make this work. We're going to provide you support. We're going to give you the training. It was so
right. So we had trainings at least once a month, and they were during the day and they were with your partner. So it was also really great because if you didn't fully understand everything, your partner was also there. And then the two of you could go, and they were partners in different subject areas. We were able to kind of go back and say, like, I'm going to try this, or maybe I'll try that. Or did you understand this? Or, hey, and I thought that it was a very slow way to introduce that. But there is, and I get it, especially with teaching and what's a flash in the pan and what is, the hottest new thing. It sort of becomes overwhelming. And that is always going to be the issue that people have, is that it's too much. So how do you choose what is the right thing? And then as a professional person, you might say, this was great last year for that group of that class, but it's not now. And that's, I think, part of the underlying issue in our profession, is that the professionals aren't always allowed to make the decisions that they believe are the best for that particular group of students. So
I'm going to reserve comment.
Yeah. So saying this doesn't work right now doesn't mean it doesn't work ever, or it doesn't mean that someone's not willing to try. But there's also the idea of every single thing is not going to work in every single class or subject area. And, and even like this year, we're doing stations. I think stations are fantastic. Centers, stations, whatever you want, group work, whatever you want to call them, right? I am, someone who has done this type of work for over 20 years. So I'm 100% invested in this, have always been.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not done correctly, don't do it. If it's not structured, don't do it. If it is not built properly for the students to be student-centered, don't do it. So I think that there are teachers who are look at that description or can read the book about it or see examples of it and go, this isn't me. And I can't do this because it's going to be a mess, and they know that. And guess what? That's fine.
It's
It's fine.
and it's also disingenuous. It would be like
It's fine.
if I said, "I'm gonna teach you how to do gymnastics." Like, I don't know,
Right.
because,
Right. Right. But
if you
you should
wanna
try. You should try. Just do a
uh,
little harder, right?
no,
If you
no.
really wanted to, you could.
No,
But that's what we hear. That's what
well,
we hear.
but could I? No, I know. If you
That's
really
what we
wanted to.
hear. If you really wanted to. And it's like,
And
but how
we
about
don't
you
hear
say
that.
like, I don't want to. And
Yes,
guess what?
the
I don't
case of the
have
don't
to.
want tos.
I don't want
Um,
to.
and
And that's
also,
fine.
maybe the things that you're doing in the class that you're in don't lend themselves well. Like, I do enjoy doing stations. I've done them before. I've tried to do them a little bit differently. I do have a particular class, though, no matter what the expectations are that I set, they cannot handle the expectations. It is a
Yeah,
very
there's always an outlier.
yeah.
That's totally
So
possible.
I need to, like, part of me wants to, I'm not going to give up on it, but when I do stations the next time, I have to structure activities differently for that particular group of students because of the needs are I have the smartest G&T kids in the room versus the kids that are like very low and have extreme learning disability, and I have to try to figure out how to incorporate everyone. And I've tried the heterogeneous grouping and put the hardest working kids with the kids who might be the lowest, or I've
Often
tried. Yeah.
but the kids sometimes who are like the highest level learners are the worst at those types of activities.
Yep.
They need the most explanation and training.
Hmm.
And I think people assume like, oh, they can just do it because like they're smart and they quote unquote smart and they could do it. But I always say intelligence without grace is disgraceful.
Mm.
And oftentimes, especially in middle school with our highest achieving students, they have not reached a level of grace with their intelligence just yet. And so intelligence without grace is disgraceful. And that's the biggest lesson that they need to learn. And it can be quite humbling for them. And that I just think is always can be an issue in group work, particularly when you have highs and lows, depending on how you define that. But
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I completely
yeah,
agree. And look,
yeah,
I applaud the Kenilworth School District for
agree.
not only, I'm sure there's other districts that are, but you know what? They actually like publicized it and said, "Hey, here's what we're doing. Here's
Yes,
why we're doing it." And if you
yes,
were to further read the article, we'll make sure to tag it in the episode.
yes.
Hopefully you guys are all able to access it. We'll make sure that you guys are able to see it, but you also can see that like they gave let me see if I have it here
They
real
also
quick.
had a lot of resources for parents and for the
Yes.
teachers. So they
Yes.
didn't just go into this and say, "Yeah, let's all do this." They had tons of, and it's still up on their school website.
Yeah.
Bring pencils, bring backpacks, but no more cell phones, right?
Yeah.
It's no cell phones
And
allowed.
they also talked about how, in July of 2024, school districts and even several states began announcing smartphone bans in schools and across the country. And I am all for it. That is a topic for a completely different conversation. But
Sure.
I like the fact that they're giving information about it to parents and saying, "Hey, here's kind of where we're getting this from." And we also had, they tagged the book Anxious Generation once again, and I think they're going to have some very fruitful conversations about, hey, you know what? I'm assuming, hey, I sat with my kids on Friday night, and instead of us all just kind of like on our screens, we played a board game, or we watched a movie and we laughed again. We hadn't done that in a while, or we went out for pizza, or we went for a walk, or we did like
Right.
little things like that. Like, I don't know, but I know you feel the same way. Like, there are times like when I'm driving with my kids and like just having those conversations about what's going on in life and laughing about things. Like those are I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Um, I enjoy
Right.
giving my daughter advice when we're driving to Carvel because she's had a crappy day and she needs advice. And sometimes that advice is not what she wants to hear, but other times it's exactly what she needs to hear. And we don't have
Right.
those conversations if we're just sitting on a device, not having those conversations with our kids.
Right.
So,
I
yeah.
agree. It's we're all trying to find our balance, and including us here. That's our whole basis of our chats, really.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it struck us when we read the article that they were trying to bring some balance to the good people of K-Town, New
Of
Jersey.
K-Town.
So that's right.
Hashtag K-Town Diner
Yes.
Cheesecake. I really got to go do that. Well, look, friend, as always, I appreciate you and our conversation. So
I
thank
appreciate you as well,
All
Mr.
right.
Vitally.
Vitaly, Mr. Vital.
Vital? No
Yes.
E?
Ms. Wanko. So we will see you all next time on the Balancing Act podcast.
Bye.
I never write.
Look for the Balancing Act podcast every week on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Thank you for being a part of our audience. We appreciate you.